To be completely honest, Alpha wasn't even on my radar initially. I only kept an eye on it because it belongs to the YRF Spy Universe. However, my curiosity peaked when a wave of toxic Durandar fanboys and right-wing groups launched a massive, coordinated hate campaign against it. That social media noise actually pushed me to watch it. Now that I have seen Alpha, here is my unfiltered breakdown of how the movie actually holds up. Fair warning, spoilers ahead. So let's get started. One of my biggest gripes with the YRF Spy Universe has been its aesthetic monotony. The frustrating habit of copy-pasting the exact same visual language from one project to the next, from War to Pathaan and then into War 2. The cinematography, framing and overall color grading felt like a recycled template. It became incredibly tedious. Alpha, however, genuinely surprised me. Visually, the film breathes on its own. The cinematography is crisp, the color palette feels distinct and deliberate, and for the first time in a long while, the Spy Universe has delivered a visually pleasing cinematic experience. On a purely technical level, the visual execution holds its ground remarkably well. Alia Bhatt anchors the film with a fiercely committed performance, effortlessly commanding her action sequences and proving she has the screen presence to lead a massive action vehicle. Her execution is sharp, engaging, and genuinely fun to watch. Sharvari holds her own, particularly in the rigorous training sequences, but her performance doesn't quite leave the same lasting satisfaction as Alia's. My biggest disappointment, however, was Deol. I went in with high expectations, but his performance felt bogged down by an artificial weight. Instead of channeling a genuinely menacing antagonist, it felt like he was overcompensating with forced theatrical gravity. On the bright side, Anil Kapoor is reliably sold. He brings a warm, grounded energy to the family dynamics, delivering a calibrated, comforting performance. The first half of the film relies heavily on a family-driven narrative. While the core tropes are admittedly generic, the execution in the first half is surprisingly engaging. This caught me off guard because recent memories in the Spy Universe, most notably War 2, have handled personal stakes with a level of melodramatic writing that borders on irritating. In Alpha, the emotional beats actually connect without feeling overbearing, managing to keep me invested before the heavy espionage elements take over. Midway through, the film takes a hit due to its derivative storytelling. It borrows so heavily from standard tropes that it practically mirrors the narrative structure of a Saturday morning animated movie like Mighty Raju. While director Shiv Rawail tries his best to maintain momentum, the screenplay completely derails in the second act, veering into an agonizingly predictable track. By the time the final act rolls around, the movie relies on such recycled plot twists that you can't help but wonder if the studio itself is tired of telling the exact same story. It begs the question, why does YRF continue to rely so heavily on Sridhar Raghavan as the foundational architect of this entire universe? His last genuinely cohesive sharp script was arguably the first was. Since then, across Pathaan, Tiger 3, Yudra, War 2 and now Alpha, the structural cracks in his writing have become impossible to ignore. The pattern seems systemic. Producer Aditya Chopra provides a highly formulaic cliffed concept. Raghavan writes an uninspired screenplay around it and then they hand it off to a director to salvage. When the foundational text is this weak, you cannot blame the directors of films like Tiger 3 or War 2 for the final output. It's an uphill battle no filmmaker can win. This brings us to the core issue plaguing the studio, a total lack of creative autonomy for its directors. While the overarching narrative used to be micromanaged by Aditya Chopra, Alpha sees Uday Chopra stepping into the mix. When a studio hires a talented director but hands them a rigid, unyielding screenplay with no room for adjustment, they effectively handcuff their own talent. Shiv Rawail proved his immense potential and distinct voice with The Railwayman, but that momentum feels stifled here. Had Rawail been given the freedom to write or heavily adapt Alpha, the final product would have been vastly superior. If YRF continues this top-down producer-dictated approach without letting directors truly collaborate and innovate, this cinematic universe will rapidly lose its future. Let's clear the air. Alpha is not a politically driven PR campaign film like Durandar The Revenge, regardless of its flaws. I strongly disagree with the narrative that online hate campaigns, toxic fandoms, or organized IMDb review bombing are what dragged this movie down. Alpha faltered because of its own internal creative missteps, not because of internet trolls. They tried the exact same boycott tactics with Pathaan and we all know how that turned out. To paraphrase a classic line, पार्टी पठान के घर पे रखोगे तो मेमबाजी के लिए पठान तो आएगा और पटाखे भी लाएगा. So catch you guys in the next video. Bye bye guys.